अब तक हमने इस चैप्टर में इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड में हमने इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड के कॉन्सेप्ट को जो है बहुत डिटेल्स में पढ़ा. वी लुक्ड एट the various kinds of international trade that can happen. We looked at world level organizations that are regulating and supervising international trade. हमने ट्रेड की हिस्ट्री पढ़ी कि कैसे ये डेवलप हुआ है, कैसे ये इवॉल्व हुआ है. एंड वी ऑल्सो लुक्ड एट few trading blocks, and we understood in detail the concept or the meaning of regional trading blocks. So far we've covered all the details about international trade. तो इसके आगे हम जो पढ़ेंगे that is concerns related to international trade. मतलब ये जो हम international trade की बात कर रहे हैं, it's a good thing in general, right? Trade should happen. It's a good thing. It enhances the economy. It does a lot of good things. Fine. But then, like every other thing, it has its negative effects as well. It has a few positive effects, but then it has a few negative effects as well. तो अब हम वो पढ़ेंगे. But before we go into that, let's recapitulate this concept of globalization, which we came across a couple of times in this chapter. तो globalization क्या होता है? Because we're having international trade and because जिस sort of situation की हम बात कर रहे हैं वहाँ पे since internationally trade हो रहा है तो हमारे पास open economies है, और जब economies open है और जब उसके trading patterns बहुत liberal है तो we bring into consideration this thing called globalization. और globalization क्या है? Globalization is nothing but the integration of world economies, right? So in globalization what happens is that the world becomes it's like the world becomes more integrated, right? तो एक जो पर्टिकुलर कंट्रीज है, अलग अलग सॉवरेन कंट्रीज, उन कंट्रीज की जो है सॉवरेनिटी थोड़ी डिक्लाइन कर जाती है, एंड दे आर नाउ नॉट कंप्लीटली इंडिपेंडेंट स्टेट्स, बट दे आर जस्ट a part of the entire world order. They are connected to all the other countries via this thing called globalization, which affects their economy, which affects their society, their culture, their politics, and everything, just about everything, because globalization is like a fact, and globalization prevails in at least in the times that we live in. Globalization is very, very prevalent. So because of the presence of that, we have like international trade and occurring with globalization at the same time isn't always a very good thing. There are a lot of people who have a lot of concerns with international trade. तो लोगों का मानना है कि मतलब ट्रेड तो होनी चाहिए, ट्रेड तो अच्छी चीज है, पर ये हमेशा अच्छी चीज नहीं है. So we look at when are the times when trade is a good thing, and when are the times when trade can have, especially international trade, can have a number of negative effects. So we start by looking at the positive effects. Trade is beneficial if it leads to regional specialization. Specialization को हम काफी बार डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. Specialization is a good thing, and when a region is specializing in something, and when all regions of the world are specializing in something or the other, and trade is happening with that sort of specialization at the country level, when trade is happening at an international level, it's a good thing. It means that it means that production is optimal. It's like every region of the world is producing what it is best at producing, and they are trading amongst themselves at an international level, and this makes this just makes the whole situation very, very optimal. This is like it's good, it's a good thing, right? So regional specialization अगर होता है international trade की वजह से तो वो एक अच्छी चीज है. We can say that if in our international trade patterns we see that different regions are specializing in one thing or the other, then we can say कि हाँ trade अच्छी direction में जा रहा है, it's going in a very good direction. The second thing that trade benefits us with is higher levels of production. तो because ट्रेड हो रहा है, because हम सिर्फ अपनी कंट्री के लिए प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर रहे हैं, बट एक्सपोर्ट इम्पोर्ट का भी हमें ख्याल रखना है, तो ऐसे में फिर हमारी प्रोडक्शन जो है वो और बढ़ जाएगी, बिकॉज नाउ वी नॉट ओनली हैव टू प्रोड्यूस फॉर द डोमेस्टिक इकोनॉमी, बट वी ऑल्सो हैव टू keep in mind the rest of the world, and we have to we look at foreign demands of our goods, and we have to produce for the world economy as well. So this leads to higher levels of production, which is something very good when we have when we have higher levels of technology that can suffice our production needs. So this is also one good thing about international trade. This is also something where international trade is benefiting us by, because when we're जब हम higher levels of production करते हैं, तब हमारे पास जो है because of international trade and because we're feeding the world economy, now we have more money from exports, and also because we have higher levels of production and that produce we are trading internationally. It also leads to, one way or the other, it leads to higher living standards among people. So it's a good thing. So that's the second point, higher levels of production. And just like I said, the third one is better living standards, because internationally when we're trading and the countries are integrating, so we have now more and more options in regards to one particular product, and there's more awareness now, there's more competition in the markets now. So these factors contribute to better living standards among people, among consumers, among consuming people, right? So that's the third thing, better living standards. The fourth one is worldwide availability of goods and services. तो क्योंकि इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड हो रहा है, तो एक मतलब अगर हमारे डोमेस्टिक फर्म का ही कोई प्रोडक्ट है, तो अब वो चीज, सो it's the same with every country and every producing firm, right? Because now that trade is international, so we have like a worldwide availability of goods, because goods are now available even if our country, even if the producing sector of our country fails to manufacture a certain good which is essential, because we probably don't have the technology for producing something like that. It's not a problem anymore, because now we can import foreign goods, and because we have more we have less trade restrictions, and we have more liberalization in the economy, so import हम कर सकते हैं, और इससे जो है हमारे कंट्री में जो चीजें अवेलेबल नहीं है, जो गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज अवेलेबल नहीं है, उनको हम बाहर से भी मंगवा सकते हैं. वी कैन परचेज foreign made goods, or we can hire foreign services for that matter. So and it's the same with every country, so as long as it's an open economy. So that's what, because goods and services are now available worldwide. You do not need to worry about whether or not your country is self-sufficient at producing everything, because now you can also, if it's not present in your country, or if it's not available at a certain quality in your country, you can always go for foreign made goods. So that's worldwide availability of goods and services. The fifth thing is equalization of prices and wages. So when when one thing is being sold in different economies, in different countries, and it's made available worldwide, there's a equalization of prices and wages, because now it's not just because it's available everywhere, and because it's being sold everywhere, so that puts the price level and the income levels of people that comes from that price level sort of on an equal pace. So this makes people it's somehow sort of leads to it prevents polarization of this entire money or income, whatever we say. It's like जो rich और poor का जो gap है, this is a lot of people will say it's not like that. A lot of critics will say that it actually leads to more polarization because the gap between rich and poor are widening. But also in some cases it just puts people on an equal level when it comes to wealth and income. So that's our fifth point there. And the sixth point is diffusion of knowledge and culture. So this is something that we can, it's not just of international trade, but this is something that we can credit to globalization as well. Because जहाँ पे हम internationally trade कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे हम दूसरे countries के साथ interact कर रहे हैं, हमारे किसी तरह के भी trading relations है उनके साथ, और उनके goods and services हमारे country में import हो रहे हैं. So there's a, it's not just a materialistic exchange, there's also an exchange of, culture, there's also an exchange of knowledge and ideas. So there's a diffusion of knowledge and culture happening, on an international level, right? So this is something that we can credit to globalization, which is sort of an important contributing factor when we're studying international trade. So these are the ways in which trade benefits us. These are the good things about trade. These are the good things that trade gives us, right? That international trade gives us or provides us with. But however, trade can be detrimental if it leads to the following of these. The first is dependence, and when we say dependence, we mean dependence on other countries, because like we discussed, if our country is not self-sufficient, we can always choose to import goods not available in our country from other countries. But if we keep on doing this at just about everything, then it means that our country is seriously lacking somewhere, and we have a very high level of dependence on the foreign sector, on foreign made goods. So, and that's not a good thing, because even though now as a consumer I am having greater choices in terms of goods and services available, even though now there's a lot of producers in the market, in the international market, competing with each other in terms of quality and in terms of prices, but still at the end of the day, my economy needs to be strong enough to be able to get into that competition. And if it's not, then it's not a good thing, no matter how much, because then we'll be importing too much, we'll be importing too many goods and too much of services, and this will lead to money going out from the country in the form of import, and this will just at one point of time or the other, this will lead to a depletion of our foreign reserves, of our money. And if we're not earning anything by exporting our goods to the foreign sector, and if we're just importing, this will end up all our financial resources, right? So that's not a good thing. So too much of dependence on the foreign sector is also not a good thing. At the end of the day, our economy needs to be, even if it's not able to produce just everything other countries can, but it should at least be strong enough and self-sufficient enough to be able to, compete at the world level. So dependence, particularly on other countries, is something that it's like a negative thing about international trade. अगर हम देख रहे हैं कि international trade की वजह से, क्योंकि economy क्या है, because if we keep on thinking कि चलो ये हमारे देश में नहीं है तो हम कहीं foreign से import कर लेते हैं, and we have that option, but if we keep on doing that about every sort of good and every kind of service, then that will lead to a sort of dependence which is not at all healthy. There's this unhealthy dependence on foreign made goods and foreign services. So that's not a good thing. The second thing is uneven levels of development. So if international trade leads to an uneven levels of development, like we have, even though now the entire world is, on a path towards uniform development, even though it's not reached there, but it's on a path because areas of Asia and Middle East are also trying to reach that sort of phase of economic development. But then if we talk about a few decades back, we had we had US and we had Europe on such high levels of economic development, and the rest of the world when the rest of the world hadn't reached all those industrialization phases, and these were the only countries that had, and they were, so this was like an uneven level of development if we talk about the entire world, and that's also not good, because then what happens, अगर किसी एक एरिया ने मतलब अगर हम यूरोप की ही बात करें तो यूरोपियन कंट्रीज ने अगर इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन अचीव कर लिया है, अगर उन्होंने एक ऐसा सॉर्ट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट अचीव कर लिया है जो बाकी के पूरे दुनिया में नहीं हुआ है, तो यूरोप क्या करेगा? यूरोप इज it exactly did that. It used to sell manufactured goods, and it used to import raw materials at very cheap prices, and used to sell manufactured goods which were also cheap because they were machine made, they didn't require a lot of labor, and so these goods were sold worldwide, especially to all the European colonies. And what happened was, so this meant a lot of money pouring into Europe, right? So that's an unequal that's an uneven level of development, and that leads to more money going in one direction, and that's also not healthy. So if these situations prevail, then international trade is not a good thing. In situations like these, international trade is actually very detrimental. It's actually a very bad thing. These are situations when international trade is not good. The second one being uneven levels of development. The third thing is exploitation. अगर international trade की वजह से exploitation हो रहा है किसी एक particular region का, किसी particular country ka, and it's not benefiting from the trade, because when we first started talking about trade, we said ki in practice, in theory at least, trade has to be mutually beneficial. Otherwise, there's no point for the two parties or whatever, any of the parties to be involved in that trade, right? So it has to be mutually beneficial. But if it's not, if it's being exploited, then there's absolutely no purpose for that party to be involved in the entire trading arrangement. So, and if because of trade a particular region or a particular country is being exploited, then that's also not a very good situation where international trade does a lot of good to us. It's actually it's doing more harm than good. So that's also a negative situation where international trade is not a good thing. The fourth point is commercial rivalry leading to wars. So this is also one of the ways in which international trade can do a lot of harm to us. If commercial rivalries between two or more countries are leading to wars, then it's quite obvious that in a situation like this, international trade is proving to be very detrimental. There's no purpose for it, because if you're not being able to manage your trading relationship in a healthy way, then there's absolutely no point for it. If you have such such deep levels of commercial rivalry that it can lead to war, then there's absolutely no point for the two parties to be in that sort of a trading arrangement. So these are the ways in which trade can be detrimental. These are the situations where trade actually benefits us. So you can just remember them as positive and negative effects of trade. And moving on, what we see is global trade affects many aspects of our life. So global trade जो है so now we have introduced the concept of globalization, which is actually not there in the book, but it actually helps us understand this. It gives us a better understanding of what we're dealing with here. तो क्योंकि हमारे पास ग्लोबल ट्रेड है, क्योंकि अब जो है हमारे पास ग्लोबलाइजेशन है, और so it's like it has a very wide reach. It reaches and it impacts countries and people of those countries. That's what it does. So global trade has an impact on the lives of ordinary people too. It's not just countries trading with each other. It actually impacts ordinary citizens who probably don't even know what sort of trading arrangements we have with what countries. So that's how deep and how culminating the effects of global trade are. So what we see here is global trade affects the following aspects of life. The first is environment. तो environment हमें पता है कि it's actually quite obvious to understand. Environment हमें पता है कि जितना ज़्यादा हम नेचर को एक्सप्लॉइट करेंगे फॉर एक्सट्रैक्टिंग रिसोर्सेज फ्रॉम इट, जितना ज़्यादा हम नेचर को पोल्यूट करेंगे उतना हमारा एनवायरनमेंट जो है डिग्रेड होगा, because a lot of times we, in order to make profit, we actually do not give much attention to what we're doing to the environment, what we're doing to nature, from which we're deriving all our resources. We as human beings have a tendency to exploit the nature in every possible way, just to extract the best possible deals out of it, just to extract maximum profits out of it. So in the entire process, the environment is very ignored, and it's not just ignored, it's very it gets degraded, right? So and this is happening with every country, every region of the world. So that's another negative effect of international trade, because we're all so profit driven, and because we want to get the best deals out of international trade, we want to have very high levels of production, for which we need more and more natural resources. So in the entire process, we're doing a lot of harm to the environment, and we do not tend to pay attention to it. So that's one thing. So that's one of the concerns associated with global trade. The second is health and well-being of people. Like I said, so international trade is not just happening between countries, it actually affects the lives of ordinary citizens, the health of ordinary citizens, and so that's the second point. So the third thing is resources are used faster. So because now we have international trade and we want to achieve high levels of production, resources are getting used up faster, and the problem is they are getting used faster than they can be replenished. So at this pace, अगर इसी पेस पे अगर हम कंटिन्यू करते रहें, तो हमारी जो हमारा रिसोर्स बेस है वो बहुत जल्दी जो है एग्जॉस्ट हो चुका होगा, एंड वी वोंट हैव एनी मोर, बिकॉज दीज रिसोर्सेज, दीज natural resources take time to get replenished, to get renewed, and if we keep on using them and we do not allow them time to replenish themselves, then at one point of time we will have exhausted the entire natural resource base, and we won't be left with any more resources to work with. So that's the third concern. The fourth is marine life is depleting fast, because God only knows what we're doing to our water bodies. We're polluting them. We're using up all the water for our industrial and commercial purposes. We're salinizing the water. We're polluting the water. We're dumping industrial waste, which is very harmful in nature, which contains very bad sort of toxins and industrial components, and we're dumping all those into water bodies and streams, and because we just absolutely can't think of any other healthy ways of disposing them. So that's doing a lot of harm to our water bodies, and at the same time it's doing a lot of harm to aquatic animals. So whatever marine life we used to have, which was so full of biodiversity, which was so full of diversity earlier, so now that is also very fast depleting. and it's all the effect of our actions. We're the ones responsible for it, and in our profit driven motives, we sort of, like we said, we sort of entirely ignore whatever we're doing to the environment. So that's one concern. Again, the marine life is depleting fast. Forests are being cut down because we need land. We need land for a lot of reasons. We need land for building houses. We need land for building more infrastructure. We need land for setting up factories. We need land for cultivation, for agricultural purposes. We need land for just about anything we want to do. So because we need land, and whatever so if we were to look for new sources of land, what we do is we cut down forests and we clear the entire patch, and we start using that for some of the other reasons. And because of that, our forest cover is also depleting. So our forest cover is way less than what it should be, but we continue to cut down more and more trees, and we continue to deforest more and more areas. So that's again another very bad thing that we do with our environment, just because we want to get richer and we want to be more developed economically. So that's another thing, another concern. Forests are being cut down. The fourth thing is river basins are sold to private companies. So so these are like private, let's say drinking water companies or private companies that require water for some of the other purposes. So we're selling all these river basins to those private companies, and when you sell a natural resource like that to a private company, it can basically do whatever it wants to do with that, with that entire water or with the river basin. And that's another way that we're subjecting it to more and more degradation. The last concern about global trade is MNCs create more pollution. So when we talk about MNCs or multinational companies or transnational corporations, what they do is they set up factories and industries in more than one country, and so these MNCs, they do not always stick to environmental norms. They do not always follow these. So their mode of operations is very, very against the environment. It's actually quite harmful to the environment, the way these MNCs work or the way they operate. And these MNCs end up creating more pollution because they are already present in more than one countries, and there are a lot of MNCs working around the world, and they also do not stick to environmental norms, and they just increase the level of pollution that all the other all of us are already creating. So they just add more to the environmental degradation thing. So these are all the these are all the concerns associated with global trade. These are all the ways that we can these are all the ways in which we can harm our environment and our nature. Somewhere or the other, these are all credited to global trade and to globalization. So that's all we're going to study regarding the concerns related to international trade. तो इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड में लोगों के कंसर्न्स यही है कि हम एनवायरनमेंट को जो है बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान पहुंचा रहे हैं, और हम जो है गरीबों का और अमीरों का जो फासला है बीच का, उसको ज़्यादा बढ़ा रहे हैं. हम जो है बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉफिट ड्रिवन हो चुके हैं, और हम जो हमने ये कॉन्सेप्ट सोचे थे सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट एंड ऑल दीज थिंग्स, वी हैव largely ignored these things, and we're just looking to make more and more profit out of international trade. तो लोगों के concerns यही है. मतलब there are people who still believe that international trade can be a bad thing. It's not always necessarily a good thing, and these are the reasons why people have beliefs like that. These are the reasons why people say or why people criticize international trade. So whatever trade we're were doing, it's like we cannot really have a closed economy anymore. We have to sort of engage in trading relations with other countries, but then at the same time we need to keep in mind the way we're exploiting the the environment that we live in. It's only going to harm us in the near future. So we need to work in a more sustainable way. We need to keep all our exploitations to a limited basis, and that's the best that we can do if we were to start thinking, so much as thinking about our about saving our environment, or about saving our natural resources for our future generations. So that's what the entire idea behind this is.